The story of the Russian Empire begins in a small area called Muscovy, around the city of Moscow. With strong enemies all around and frequent attacks, Muscovy had a tough time just surviving. But the early Muscovy rulers were smart leaders and good fighters. They cleverly turned their enemies against each other and slowly took more land. By arranging marriages and making alliances, they grew stronger and set the stage for a future empire. The Mongols ruled over much of Eastern Europe for a long time, and this had a big impact on Muscovy. But even then, a separate Russian identity began to form. The Orthodox Church, which the Muscovy princes followed, gave them a sense of shared beliefs and culture. The church also brought people together, uniting them behind their faith and their rulers. By the late 1400s, Muscovy had broken free from the Mongols and become the strongest power in the area. Ivan III, later called Ivan the Great, declared himself Tsar, meaning he believed he was the next in line after the Roman emperors. Ivan III's rule was a big moment in Russian history. It started a time of growth and dreams of empire. He added lots of land to Muscovy, including Novgorod, a big trading city. His rule prepared the way for a powerful Russian empire. The rulers who came after Ivan the Great kept building up and expanding Russia. Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible, secured Russia's eastern borders by moving into Siberia and opening trade routes to the east. He also changed the government, making it stronger and giving more power to the ruler, but his rule was also known for being very cruel and paranoid, which is why he's called Terrible. After Ivan the Terrible died, Russia went through a difficult time called the Time of Troubles. Fights over who should rule, attacks from other countries, and terrible hunger caused chaos. This messy time finally ended when the Romanov family took over in 1613. The Romanovs ruled Russia for the next 300 years, a time of huge growth and change. The early Romanov czars focused on making their government stronger and taking more land. They moved south towards the Black Sea, wanting ports that weren't frozen in winter and access to the Mediterranean Sea. They also went west, fighting for control of the Baltic area against neighbors like Sweden and Poland-Lithuania. By the late 1600s, Russia was a major European power, ready to become even more important under Peter the Great. Peter the Great, who ruled from 1682 to 1725, is one of the most important people in Russian history. He took over a huge country that was behind the times compared to Western Europe. It needed better technology, government, and army. Wanting a modern Russia that was a leading European power, Peter started making big changes. Peter's reforms affected everything in Russia. He made the army more like Western armies, brought in new technologies and industries, and built a strong navy. He changed the government, making it more organized and efficient. He knew education was important, so he started schools and universities and encouraged people to learn Western ideas. One of Peter's biggest achievements was building St. Petersburg in 1703. Located on the Baltic Sea, St. Petersburg became Russia's window to the West, showing how much Peter wanted to modernize his country and be part of Europe. The city quickly became a major center for trade, culture, and government, shifting Russia's focus from east to west. Catherine the Great, who ruled from 1762 to 1796, continued what Peter the Great had started. She liked Enlightenment ideas, so she made changes to improve education, write down laws, and help the economy grow. During her rule, Russian culture and art thrived. It's often called Russia's Golden Age. Catherine also added a lot of land to Russia. She won a war against the Ottoman Empire, gaining access to the Black Sea and increasing Russian influence in the Caucasus region. She also took part in dividing up Poland-Lithuania, giving Russia even more land. By the time she died, Russia was a huge empire, stretching from Central Europe all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Under Catherine, Russia became a major player in European politics. She made alliances and had rivalries with other European powers, always trying to make things better for Russia. By the time her rule ended, Russia was a powerful force in Europe, able to influence other countries and shape what happened. Section 5. Napoleonic Wars, a tough challenge. The Napoleonic Wars in the early 1800s were a big problem for Russia. Napoleon Bonaparte wanted to control Europe, and that threatened Russia. At first, Tsar Alexander I, who ruled from 1801 to 1825, tried to keep Napoleon happy. But Napoleon kept taking over more countries, so war couldn't be avoided. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia with a huge army. The Russians fought back by burning everything as they retreated, leaving nothing for Napoleon's army. The harsh Russian winter also caused huge problems for the French. The invasion was a disaster for Napoleon, weakening his empire and leading to his defeat. Russia's victory made it clear they were a powerful nation. They felt proud and were stronger in Europe. But the war also showed problems with Russia's government and the growing gap between the rulers and the people. Section 6. Seeds of Discontent, Trouble Brewing. Even though Russia won wars and took new lands, there were big problems inside the country during the 1800s. Most people were poor and lived under the Tsar's complete control. The Crimean War, from 1853 to 1856, was a bad loss for Russia against Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire. This defeat showed how weak Russia was and that things needed to change. Alexander II, who ruled from 1855 to 1881, made important changes, especially freeing the serfs, people who were like slaves, in 1861. This was a good thing, but it didn't fix all of Russia's problems. Factories and businesses grew, but workers had difficult jobs and were treated unfairly. The Tsar still had all the power and didn't want to share it. More and more people opposed the Tsar in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Groups who wanted big changes started to appear. Revolutionaries assassinated Alexander II in 1881, which led to more harsh rules and more fighting between the government and the people. Section 7. The First World War, the Empire's last fight. World War I from 1914 to 1918 was the event that destroyed the Russian Empire. Russia joined the war to help Serbia, another Slavic nation, against Austria, Hungary, and Germany. The Russian army wasn't ready for modern war and lost many soldiers against the better-equipped Germans. The war hurt Russia's economy and society. Not enough food, rising prices, and losing battles made people angry. The Tsar and his government didn't understand how much people were suffering and couldn't manage the war or the unrest at home. In February 1917, a revolution started in Petrograd, formerly St. Petersburg, because people were hungry and life was getting worse. The Tsar was forced to give up his throne, ending hundreds of years of Romanov rule. A temporary government took over, but it couldn't fix the problems or stop the war. Section 8. The Fall of the Romanovs, Revolution and Breakdown. The February Revolution left Russia without a strong leader. The Bolsheviks, a radical socialist group led by Vladimir Lenin, quickly took charge. They promised peace, land, and food to the tired and hungry Russian people. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks took over the government in a second revolution, creating the world's first communist country. The Bolshevik Revolution changed Russia and the world. The new communist government wanted total control and a socialist society. They made drastic changes like taking over businesses, forcing farmers onto collective farms, and silencing anyone who disagreed with them. These changes, often carried out cruelly, caused widespread suffering and chaos. The Russian Civil War from 1917 to 1922 was a brutal fight between the Bolsheviks, the Reds, and their enemies, the Whites. The Bolsheviks won, but millions of Russians died in the fighting, from hunger, or because of the Red Terror, a campaign of violence against anyone the Bolsheviks considered an enemy. Section 9. Legacy of an Empire, a Lasting Impact. The Russian Empire, once huge and powerful, disappeared after the Bolshevik Revolution, but its impact is still felt in Russia and the world. The country's imperial past, with its good and bad times, is still important to Russians. The Soviet Union, which came after the Russian Empire, had similar goals of being powerful. The Cold War, a global fight between the Soviet Union and the United States, was like the old power struggles from the past. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, ending the communist experiment. But the influence of the Russian Empire remained. Russia, now a republic, is still dealing with its imperial past, trying to find its place in a world changed by globalization and new powerful countries. The story of the Russian Empire is complicated. It's a story of military strength and cultural achievements, but also of harsh rulers, unfairness, and revolution. Understanding this history is important for understanding modern Russia, a country still affected by its past as it faces the challenges of the 21st century.